Call the meeting, Bureau of Public Works, regular meeting, Monday, June 30 at 5:35. Okay, good enough, close enough. Thank you, sir. We'll ask for any public comments.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
Alma.
Shall I
Please.
speak now?
yes, please announce yourself and
Okay,
your address.
yes. My name is Alma Elder, and I live in Middlefield, Connecticut. And I've been part of the audience that has followed and watched the MDC do its excellent job for a couple of years now. And this is what I want to say. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. I urge you to modify or deny the proposed lease of a power plant comprised of three 3,000 carbonate fuel cells, which use methane and produce carbon dioxide. I wish to speak to the commissioners who were appointed by the governor. They may be aware of Public Act number 225, which mandates the state to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by at least 45% below 2001 levels by 2030. I also wish to speak to the commissioners who speak for the city of Hartford. They may be aware that natural gas pipelines in Hartford are leaky and lead to public health dangers. Natural gas is the fuel of these carbonate cells, and it contributes to ozone and greenhouse gases. The brochure from the fuel cell company shows that carbon dioxide is emitted. Children in Hartford are 3 times more likely to be hospitalized for asthma as compared to Connecticut residents in the rest of the state. I also wish to speak to the scientific minds among you who know that although when we look at the air, we can see very little floating around in it, when measured for carbon dioxide, there are excessively large amounts of carbon dioxide already floating in the air. I wish to speak to the engineers among you who may be aware that some methods for carbon capture may be insufficient to address air pollution in Hartford. I also wish to speak to the commissioners who are aware that the climate is changing and the planet experiences more severe floods, droughts, and wildfires. This lease will dirty further the already dirty air in Hartford. However, all of you commissioners are pledged to uphold core values of public accountability and environmental stewardship. I urge MDC, a private company with a huge public obligation, to either monitor continuously or deny permanently these fuel cells. Metropolitan District Commission could establish a highly qualified oversight committee to measure environmental effects of the fuel cells. With an oversight committee of talented staff from MDC, there could be assurance that methane leaks are negligible and carbon capture is effective over the 20 years of this lease. This committee could even demand higher standards than will be offered by the company for a power plant, when it is offered by a company for a power plant in a polluted and disadvantaged neighborhood.
Thank you.
I am not quite through.
Well, I think your time is up.
Oh, I wasn't aware that I had a
Well,
time limit.
usually we give 3 minutes. I think you've been there for 5, but that's fine. If you can wrap it up in a sentence,
Yes, I could.
happy to do that.
I recommend that Metropolitan District Commission and the Bureau of Public Works improve the air for taxpayers in Hartford and Connecticut. Commissioners can appoint engineers, employees, and citizens to a crucial oversight committee, or they could deny the permit.
Okay,
Thank you for allowing me to
thank
speak.
you. Appreciate the comments. Now we have an opportunity for any other public comment. If not, we'll go to the next item on the agenda, number 3, and ask for the consumer advocate, who I believe is on the phone.
Hi, Elizabeth Tavelli. I want to say thank you to Alma for your comments. And I did receive in advance a letter that you had written, and I believe that's been circulated to all the commissioners, but hopefully we can get that verified. I did also notice on the agenda regarding the approval of availability and capacity guidelines. I do just have some general questions regarding how to make sure that the contractor estimates for the work to be done, in particular the part that MDC may go together with individual developers and put that money towards improving the public facilities as opposed to, like stormwater capture on the site. If we're going to put it into a project in the street, how do we make sure that those contractor estimates are consistent project to project? Do we have an approved list of contractors that developers are going to work with? I just see a little bit of an availability there for problematic differences in contractor estimates. And I sort of just raise that concern as we move forward with these types of projects. And that's all I have for now on it. Maybe more later. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your input. Item number 4, we have action needed on approval of the minutes. I believe we have a quorum, so I'm looking for someone to move the
Move it that.
item number 4. Thank you. Second.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you. Abstentions? Hearing none. Minutes pass. Number 5, we have an opportunity for taking action on the lease of real estate for fuel cells on Brainerd Road. This, Mr. Attorney, has executive session. Do we have the need for that or not?
No. Not on this one. There's another item that
Yes.
executive session, but this is pretty straightforward and it's in the public domain, obviously, so I have no problem with excluding it from executive session.
Okay. So
For purposes of discussion.
Absolutely.
I move we approve.
Chairman Curry,
I move we approve.
Second.
anything further? If not,
Well,
yes, sir.
I have some questions, just,
Oh, please.
and if you wouldn't mind, I would like to direct them through you to Scott.
Sure.
Permitting process that, they have to go through the state, correct?
Deep. If I may, through the
Yes,
chair.
please.
So we've asked, we have forwarded Ulmer's comments to the consultant and asked them to answer those questions as part of their presentation, but yes,
I'm not asking regarding her comments.
Yes.
But they have to go through state or deep for permitting. In so doing,
Citing council.
They have to meet the requirements and regulations as it relates to pollution controls by both the state and the federal government.
and the siting council. Siting council actually, they actually regulate carbon dioxide, CO2, as part of the siting council permitting process. So that is obviously done under the siting council. And so we've asked the consultant to explain that in terms of how they go through the process to get approval. And we'll be happy to listen to how they do that. But I don't want to speak for them in terms of what they have to do to get an approval. They do have to go through PURA, as is referenced, Public Act 22-5. You know, that is a act that's mandated by the legislature that PURA enforces to make sure that greenhouse gases are removed and reduced over time. And obviously, the fact that the legislature and PURA utilizes fuel cells as part of that program to actually reduce greenhouse gases. The other option is to burn, oil, coal, or natural gas 100% to produce power. The fuel cell is part of the program that are part of the tools in the toolbox for PURA and the legislature to comply with that act.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have an opportunity that we don't always have, but Attorney Stone wants to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr.
That
Chairman.
point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Chris Stone, District Council. Before I ask Carl Nasto from my office to step forward and just give a few highlights of the proposed lease agreement, I just want the committee to know that members of the company that is proposing to locate these fuel cells on about a 33,000 square foot pad down at the South Meadows facility that the district owns are here. And I think to create a record as to either way, quite frankly, and to answer questions that anyone might have, I would like to, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, give them the opportunity just to present, to respond to Alma's comments if they feel it's appropriate, and to answer any questions that the members might have. So with that, first, Carl, if you can just step forward and give us a brief overview of the lease, the term, consideration, et cetera. And then when Carl's done, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, we'll have the representatives from FCE speak as well.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Chairman.
Good evening, Commissioners. Carl Nasto, Senior Assistant District Counsel for the MDC. Little background on this. This facility was supposed to be located off of Homestead Avenue, but the developer found out that they didn't have access to natural gas lines near that site. So they approached us and said that there was a availability down in Brainerd Road, and that would work for them down there if we were interested. So we commenced the negotiations. They actually did an option to kind of do their due diligence, and they executed the option to lease the property, and then we negotiated a lease, the terms of which are now all set, just pending your approvals. So at this point, right now, what we have is a 20-year lease. We have approximately 33,000 square feet on 235 Brainerd Road for the site for the cells to be located. It's a fairly standard lease. It's not that difficult. They have some initial preconditions. They have to get siting council approval. They have to be able to get an interconnection agreement with the utilities that has to be signed off by ISO New England. And but other than that, it's fairly straightforward. We did look at the rent, and we're in the average area for the market in the industrial side of Hartford. So the rent's a fair market rent for what they're paying us. That's really about it. It goes for 20 years.
Okay.
And Carl, the rent is, the rent dollar amount?
Yeah, yes. Oh, what it is? Well, it fluctuates, but it starts out at $10.94 a square foot.
The annual payment, Carl.
What's the annual payment?
Oh,
20 years, it's about 7.7 mil.
well, no, it's $363,000 for the first 5 years of the lease.
And then is there an accelerator each year after that?
There's adjustments for years 6 through 10 to $381,000. It goes up a little bit every 5 years.
Comments, commissioners? I know we have an additional, I'm sorry.
Bush.
Yes, Commissioner
Mr.
Bush.
Chairman, through you, is there any way for either party to terminate the lease early?
Yes.
Under what can, okay.
Well, most of the conditions relate to their failure to get the necessary approvals to go forward with the project. That would be the siting council, the most obvious one. But also, if they don't get the interconnection agreements, they really can't do the lease.
If I may.
Yep, please.
Carl, just a question, and I don't know if you know this because Mike Palmer might be able to explain this to us, but in the Homestead Avenue site, we presented this at the last a couple of BPW meetings ago. That site was approved by Pura. It was part of the I forgot the name of the program under Pura, but it was approved by Pura. Question: did the siting council approve the project at Homestead Avenue? And I don't know if you don't know that, or maybe Mike knows that.
I don't think it got to siting council.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did not. Okay. Thank you.
Question.
Commissioner DeBella.
Isn't the interconnect is also approved by the siting council, I believe? Someone has to, that interconnection has to be approved too.
Well, what has to happen while siting council is doing their process, there's a separate parallel process through ISO New England that looks at whether the additional load to the system is going to adversely affect it. But it's ISO New England that does that.
But Mike, Mike and FCE can go through each of the
Yes.
permits that are necessary. I think that's important because one of, that we have specific terms within the lease as to right to terminate that Carl alluded to. And that's an excellent question, Commissioner Bush, because that's important for another reason, and that is compliance with all permits that are issued, compliance with environmental emissions, et cetera, that are permitted, and making sure they stay within their permit. With those types of rights of termination, there is a cure provision, so, it's not a do or die thing. If there's a violation, they have an opportunity to cure that violation, but ultimately, if they fail to do so and fail to comply or live up to their obligations particularly on the environmental side, because that's a very sensitive, obviously, it's a very sensitive area, and it's a rather new, at least for me, it's a rather new experience, going through this technology, but these rights of termination and rights to enforce the terms are important to the NDC. So, and that goes along the lines of what Alma was talking about in terms of, and that's our job, right? We monitor these things. It's our site. It's in a very relatively crowded area, and what they do with their site may have an impact on our ability to meet our core mission objectives down at the site as well. So there's monitoring, there's oversight, and there's insurance that they will comply with the terms and conditions within a lease. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Carl, but with that, I think, go ahead, I'm sorry, if there's anything else, yeah, sure.
Actually, I'm quite positive on this, but just a question. If they go out of business within the 20 years, do we have a disposal issue, or is this just scrap, an environmental disposal issue?
I'll let them answer that question, Commissioner, but we're just leasing the property, right? So the property.
Again, they go out of business and they just abandon everything. What happens, what do we hold? Can we just scrap it, or
Carl, do you have anything in
disposal
there?
issue with environmental issues?
Yeah.
Well, you can raise that question again, because I
Yeah.
think we have someone else in addition to Carl. That's all right.
I'm just going to say that the fuel cells remain the property of FSC. So they have to take them away at the end. I believe they can.
No. 10 year in, they close because they both bankrupt, which, things happen. Is it a big disposal issue we have getting rid of that stuff, or is it just scrap? I don't know environmentally.
Yeah.
A little bit what's in that. We'll ask the other guys.
Well, that's the
Yeah,
question,
yeah, I think that's a question for them.
Again, I'm positive for the same. I'm
Yeah.
just negative. I just think.
That's fine.
Commissioner Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think what Commissioner Drake is talking about is there any language in our lease that requires them to decommission it or remove everything if they abandoned it?
Yes.
Is there a security deposit at all on the property?
No security deposit, but they do have to remove the fuel cells.
Thank you.
Attorney Stone,
I have nothing else for
You-
Carl.
you wanted to call somebody?
Yeah, we want to have Mike Palmer
Frank
from,
Palmer,
yeah, Mike and his staff.
please, Mike. Come up, just announce yourself and identify.
Certainly.
Please.
Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me this time. Mike Palmer with Fuel Cell Energy. Also have two other members of our team here. I have Alex Isaac, our Assistant General Counsel, and Chris Strong, who's our project manager on this project. So I do have a presentation which may help with guiding some of this. Some of this you've already heard. Some of it will be new. I tried to answer as many questions as we had that were presented before this and give you the answers, but obviously ask questions as we go. So. All right.
It's not sharing.
Okay. Oops.
Good.
Second.
All right, so the project as a whole is basically three of our, what we call a 3,000 unit. It's a 2.5 megawatt power plant, and there's three of them for a total of 7.5 megawatts. As was mentioned earlier, this was originally awarded under an incentive that was introduced in 2017, 2018. It was supposed to be in Homestead Avenue. However, as we found out, Homestead Avenue didn't have enough fuel available in the area to fuel the units, so we had to find a new location, which we did in July of 2024. We had an option to lease with the MDC to place it there. In December of '24, Pura actually approved the moving of the project, and Pura approved the project originally because Pura manages the incentive program that this was under. In 2025, January, we executed the amendment to the existing agreement that was between Eversource and UI. The way this incentive is structured, there is a power purchase agreement between Eversource, UI, and ourselves. And as you notice on the first bullet, that's split 80-20 between Eversource and UI. And then the whole intent of this is to provide Class 1 power to the Connecticut power grid to support the Renewable Portfolio Standards, or the RPS of the state.
Mike, before, this is really important. So your first statement is originally awarded under the Connecticut incentive. Can you explain how the incentive is created? So it starts with the legislature, and why are they creating the incentive?
Yeah, it's on another slide. I don't know which button I push here to make sure.
Right?
Right? Okay. See if that works. Didn't go. There it is. Okay. This one just shows how many fuel cells are actually in operation today in Hartford, to give you an idea. All of these went through Pura, went through siting councils. They all had to get permitted and to put in place. These are actually operational fuel cells in the Hartford vicinity. There's another, quite a few, a total of about 160 megawatts total worth in the state. And again, all of those have to go through Pura as well as siting councils to get approved. Let's see, next slide I think is the one that has it. Didn't go. All right. Yeah, there's the Public Act 17144 is the original act that this was driven by. It was an act that was to provide fuel cells to be able to support the RPS standards in the state. And that was back in 2017, awarded in 2018. And these were issued through DEEP. DEEP created this or manages it. They approved it. They require it to be a Class 1 system, which fuel cells are under DEEP's rules and under state law. So that was the bill or the public act that it's under.
But just a question.
Sure.
Just a question, Mike, just to be really specific here. The RPS program is meant to do what?
Oh, okay. The RPS, the Renewable Portfolio Standard, is meant to be able to replace traditional generation with Class 1 generation. And again, that's on another slide. Let's see if I can go forward. There it is. So the renewable portfolio standard takes the requirements of getting to a certain percentage of Class 1 generation by 2030. And you can see on the table on the right, that's the target goals to get there. Basically, it has to qualify under the definition of Class 1 renewable energy source, which fuel cells do in this state. And to give you an idea of what this is, it's based on what they call a renewable energy credit, or a REC. Every megawatt hour generated is classified as a single REC, and you need a certain amount of RECs to meet these goals. This project will generate about 60,000 RECs annually. Basically, in the state of Connecticut in 2023, to give you an idea of size, 26 million megawatt hours of power were produced. So it would be, a REC is 1 megawatt hour. That's not 26 million RECs, it's 26 million megawatts of hour were produced in the state. So based on the RPS standards, for 23, 26% of that would have to be Class 1 renewables, or the local utilities, Eversource and UI, would have to pay a fee. It's a penalty for about 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour to be able to cover those RECs.
So the purpose of this project and other projects like it that fall under the RFS is to actually lower the greenhouse gases.
Correct.
State of Connecticut.
Greenhouse gases and pollutions.
Right, pollutions.
And
So
pollutions.
it's part of a tool in the toolbox of the legislature and PURA to actually achieve that goal,
Correct.
right? Okay. Thank you.
All right, I think,
Mike?
go ahead.
Mike Christone, who pays the penalty you just described?
If the local distribution companies, Eversource and UI, don't meet the REC requirements of the year, they do.
But who ultimately pays that?
Ratepayers.
Well, they pass it on to the
Thank you.
ratepayers. So, to give you an idea of emissions on these units and what they do, this is fuel cells in general, the carbonate fuel cell more specifically. If we look on the left side, this is a comparison based on eGrid, or the EPA provided data for NOx, SOx, particulates, and VOCs. NOx are nitrogen oxides, SOx are sulfur oxides, particulates are particulate matter, and VOCs are volatile organic compounds. As you can see, the nice thing with the fuel cells is there's barely any NOx emitted, and there's virtually none when it comes to SOx, particulates, and VOCs. And you can see it compared to, on the eGrid data sheets that what are used usually as a bar to look at. The NEWE is the New England area. You can see the comparison there. And the 2023 is Connecticut by itself within that group. So the blue bar is FCE, or the carbonate fuel cell. The orange bar is the New England area, or ISO New England. And the purple one would be just Connecticut. So that gives you an idea on the NOx, SOx, and particulates and VOCs. Those would be considered pollutants by definition within Connecticut. Greenhouse gases are CO2 on the other one. For all intents and purposes, the carbonate, the New England, ISO New England, and the Connecticut are within a percentage point, not even, of each other from a CO2 standpoint, emission-wise. And just as a reference, if we look at the closest generator within Hartford that would be near this location, it's the Covanta one, which is the waste-to-energy system. You can see the significant amount of CO2 that puts out, yet that's considered a net zero system because it's burning carbon, it's burning garbage. So then from an air permitting standpoint, if there are any questions on that slide, let me know. From an air permitting standpoint, there's two ways of looking at it. The Title V permitting, which is a federal type permitting. That table on the top left is the actual outputs, the potential outputs for these systems. The Title V, we do not meet the definition as a major stationary source as defined within the Title V definitions. If there were any permitting required under Title V federal requirements, we would be responsible for that. There is an example of another location in the state that has a Title V permit that has 2 of these units on them. They are exempt from their Title V requirements.
If I could just add, this is an important point, because some questions, which are fair and good questions, well, how does it affect MDC's Title V permit? And CO2 is not measured under our Title V permit, so it doesn't even apply to our Title V permit at the plant.
Correct. And it was very similar to the other location in state that has the same, very similar Title V. It is called out as an exemption to their Title V. They have a 5.6 megawatt system on their site. They're actually using the output, so that's why they had to call it out. Based on our understanding of the Title V permitting, since you're not using any of the output of these systems, you would not even have to mention that it's part of your system, because it's not.
Thank you. Commissioner, questions? Anything further?
If I could just ask a
Go right
question.
ahead.
Yes, so I'd like to, because Alma had a lot of great questions, and I just want to clarify this, and Mike, you had mentioned a number of other statutes that were passed, and I think it's really important to note that the state of Connecticut legislature and PURA has created a program that includes fuel cells to reduce greenhouse gases in the state of Connecticut, and this is one of those projects. And as we saw at the list, there's multiple fuel cells in Hartford that are operating today or bidding on today.
No, those are operational.
Those are operational, but there's one at the there's one being bid right now at the Department of Education, right?
Correct.
So the city of Hartford is installing these, and it was planned to be done at Homestead Avenue. But to clarify, Alma had mentioned Public Act 22-5. How does that Public Act 22-5 relate to the statutes that approve the RPS program?
Well, I'm not 100% up on 22-5.
Okay.
But we meet the RPS because we qualify as a Class 1 renewable. So
Okay.
for the RPS, they have to have Class 1 RECs. The utilities, the EDCs, have to come up with a certain number every year, and it increases 4% a year until it gets to 2030. Those Class 1 devices or systems are defined by the law, by the state, and as I forgot the number of the act that it's under, but it was on my slides.
Yeah.
There is a list of different types of technology, all of which are considered Class 1 for REC generation.
And if you weren't in compliance with those state statutes, you wouldn't be eligible
Correct.
under the PURA program, correct?
The original incentive that this was under 17-144 requires it to be a Class 1 fuel cell.
Okay.
Which we would never have gotten that incentive. Eversource and UI would never have entered into a power purchase agreement with us for these systems if it weren't for the environmental attribute associated with them.
And you're producing about 8 megawatts of power?
7.5.
7.5. So the option, besides doing nothing and the penalty, what's the alternative for power companies to produce power versus, a fuel cell? What is the only other option?
Well, there's several other options that they could go to. For 7.5 megawatts, there's very few.
Yeah.
Because of the amount of space it would take up. So, for example, a Class 1 renewable is a solar panel.
Yeah.
However, if you were to produce 7.5 megawatts of solar panels, you would need quite a number of acres of land to be able to do that.
6 watts a square foot.
Exactly.
So, but I guess my point is, I'm talking about more the emissions. So if a power company is going to produce 8 megawatts and produce 100, but the 8, the only other option for a power company to produce power without a fuel cell or solar or any renewable energy is to do what? Burn coal, oil.
Correct.
Natural gas, 100% natural gas, right? So the benefit to the community is actually reducing emissions by the power companies, not increasing them.
Well,
right?
and the other thing to remember are these projects and the RECs and the RPS standards are all basically replacing the non-baseload generation, right? We have a significant amount of baseload generation already in this state. For example, Millstone is considered a baseload generator. These would be replacing non-baseload because it's considered distributed generation. Your non-baseload generators typically are either natural gas, oil, propane, jet fuel, all those other types of fuels that would be used on peaking type plants, things that would be turned on when demand is high. So that gives you an idea of, you would be comparing it more towards those types of fuel sources and that type of generation than, say, a solar panel or something like that.
So the alternative is worse, right? Without projects like this, the only other alternative is a,
Without projects like this, the other sources of generation that would run will typically be the aircraft derivative, which are aircraft fuels, which have high emissions, not just on the CO2, but on all the other pollutants, which are significant. It's more than just the greenhouse gas emissions, which are CO2. It's those NOx, SOx in particular, especially in urban areas like Hartford, where those can hang around for acid rain and smog and things like that and cause health issues.
thank you.
Okay.
Point.
Yes, sir. Commissioner
Or
DeVella.
they could purchase more nuclear.
Well, they could. I don't know how much they purchase already. I'm assuming they purchase pretty much most of it, but I don't know.
Further,
No, it's just that, well, the state's buys 500 megawatts.
further question, commissioners? Yes, Commissioner
Not
Gale.
mentioned that
And then-
city is installing it, or it is within the city is allowing it, right?
Yes, so there's a list that Mike showed with a number of projects in the Hartford region. Mike, can you specifically identify the ones in Hartford? So you said that you had bid on a project for the city of Hartford
Yes,
education?
for the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities,
Yep,
their headquarters, they're putting one in. We entertained bidding that one. The problem with that one was the size was
Yeah.
too small for our product.
okay.
But they went with another fuel cell company that could fit that size. The two that we have on that list are Trinity College and Hartford Hospital.
Okay.
Both of those have our units.
Scott?
Commissioner Gale.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. One other comment that Alma mentioned was concern about natural gas leakage. And I'm just wondering what your company does to monitor natural gas leaks.
Yeah. Well, typically within, say, for example, the fence line, right? We have a certain amount of square footage that we use to run this system. At this site, it's roughly 33,000 square feet. Within that, we have multiple sensors that sense any kind of leak detection within the system there. Obviously, if it's a pipe, mile and a half down the street, I can't tell. But if it's within the system on our site, we can tell whether there's a leak or not.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, my question
Craig.
about, if it has to be scrapped in 10 years, can you scrap it or does it have to be remediated before taken down?
Yeah, under the power purchase agreement with the utilities, if you had mentioned earlier the idea that, and God forbid, we go out of business, we are responsible for removing it under that power purchase agreement. So we would remove it. About 90, I want to say 96 to 98% of it is recyclable, and the rest of it is disposed of properly by standards that are set by the federal government.
So you go out of business and you don't pick up your phone, but who's going to remove it? That doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, I'm just worried about 10 years now we get, and I'm pro for this thing, I'm not negative at all, but is this, if it could be scrapped, it's easy, but if it has to be remediated, it's kind of a big deal. I guess we just gotta think
Yeah,
about it. I think its chances are slow, but, anyways.
Yeah, it would be taken away and recycled. It would not be just scrapped. You cannot just scrap these things.
But there's not a pile of pollutants there, right?
Right.
Is there a value to this, this scenario 10 years from now? Is there a value to that product?
There could be. There could be. There's all sorts of materials within it that are used. Anything from copper to nickel, all those different types of minerals that could be used elsewhere. I would not be able to guess the value of that at the time, right? I mean, it would depend on when you scrap it or when you take it out.
The Clean Harbors doesn't have to come in.
No.
Yeah.
Clean Harbors, right?
Good question.
Further commissioner questions? Yes, Commissioner DeBella.
This is a distributive energy process that reduces the amount of greenhouse gas. That's what you basically are doing. So it's not a negative, it's a positive.
Correct. Correct, yes. I mean, these systems, based on the incentives and the plans that were put in place, are to basically replace non-base load generation, which is the dirtiest generation that we have in this state.
But not all of it,
Yeah.
but anything that's derivative of gas, basic things of that nature. But it's working and it's growing dramatically. DEEP has approved this concept. You had to go through a whole process with DEEP to qualify, did you not?
Correct, yes.
That's the standard you gotta meet.
There are no further questions from commissioners. We do need a motion to move the item
I think we have a
forward.
motion. I think we've been having.
I'm sorry? And did we have a second?
Yes. Oh, I just got one question.
Yes, sir.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. What are your are there any future expansion down the road to add more fuel cells?
Businesses.
I mean, it's always possible. These are modular. You can add more fuel cells. I mean, you would need more space, obviously, than what we have here.
Than what you would be renting from us already?
Right, correct,
okay, yeah.
correct.
You good? So with that, we will call for a vote in favor of taking care of this lease. Excuse me. Got it, thank you. So, all in favor of moving this lease agreement forward, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, passes. Thank you. Number 6.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Encroachment agreement, item number 6. This is in
Mike like it.
Rocky Hill. Thank you, Mike, by the way, and
Yes,
Carl,
thank
excuse me.
Mike, let me start this. Okay.
Yes, and we have another Mike.
We can go without Scott. Alan, we can go without Scott. Just let me start it because there's a change
Yes,
in the.
please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Stone, District Council. You can come on up, Mike. They're going to need you in a minute. Hang on. Mike's going to get into the details of the engineering, the construction part of it, but I just wanted to give a brief overview of the actual permit that we're asking you to consider and to pass and move on to the full board. Over the course of the past week, I was contacted by the Attorney General's office. They had some concerns about our standard encroachment agreement, primarily issues relating to sovereign immunity, indemnifications, insurances, et cetera, all the things that the state frowns upon when it comes to them taking on that obligation. And as I said to, I don't know if I said it to you, Mike, but they're bigger than us, and there are certain things that they just don't allow in these types of permits and agreements. So that being said, what you have in front of you, the latest version, which you just got tonight, and I apologize for the lateness, but we just resolved some issues this afternoon. What you have in front of you is a lease that, or I'm sorry, a permit agreement that addresses through the contractor the issues of indemnity, the issues of insurance, the issue of responsibility for damages, et cetera, to our infrastructure, rather than placing that on the state of Connecticut. It doesn't mean we waive any claim we might have against the state, but we have to follow the procedure for bringing a claim against the state, which, as you know, is through the State Claims Commissioner. That is the statutory vehicle by which the state may lose their defense of sovereign immunity if the claims commissioner approves the claim. But we'll have that, but we also have this backup. And the backup, they just spoke with their contractor today. They're going to do a change order on their contract to incorporate indemnity, defense, and insurance on the part of the contractor. So that's the sum and substance of the difference between what you might see in our standard encroachment agreements with a private entity, a private company, and what we have here with the state of Connecticut. And I think it's generally accepting the fact that, the state is the state. We work with the state all the time. In this case, we're working with the state to address their concern, but also make sure that we have a backstop with the contractor, and the contractor's agreed to be that backstop. So that's the important thing. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm done, and Mike wants to explain all the engineering technical stuff.
Thank you.
Mike.
Thank you. Mike Curley, Manager of Engineering. So thank you, Chris, for that background. We received the original request in January of this year, so from Michael Baker International, the engineering firm representing the DOT, and indirectly the Department of Environmental Affairs, and I'll explain that. So there's an existing 8-inch sewer and an easement, a 20-foot wide easement that runs along the eastern part of that property, and it basically goes through both properties, goes through, 2/3 of it goes through the DOT property, and 1/3 goes through the Department of Environmental Affairs property there. So the first thing they had to straighten out was a transfer custody and control agreement. So the DOT had to do some work on the veterans' property in order to connect their drainage specifically. And just to give you some more background on the technical side, both parcels actually rely on each other for water and fire and drainage. So they're kind of sharing, the veterans actually has a 4-inch and a fire line that connects into the DOT's service lines on their property, which they have to remove or abandon and get their own services to our system off of West Street. So it's not a straightforward project, but it's got some complexities to it. So while before they build a new facility, they have an existing facility right there. They just need a bigger one. So the new facility has to be pushed to the southeast corner of the property in order to allow the existing facility to exist. So there's a lot of coordination with, during the site demolition phase to work around the existing facility. So there's going to be temporary impacts or short-term impacts related to demolition to disconnect the existing services and give the VA their own services, and to move those services that currently go across the DOT property, get them out of the way of the new foundation for the new building. So there's that. And they also do have to protect the easement while they're, from all the construction activity that's going to go on. They can plate it. They're going to look at different systems to try to reinforce the ground. Currently, it's all wooded. So once they strip away they do the clearing and grubbing, and they take off the topsoil, it's soft there. And our sewer system is roughly about 10 feet deep, and it's black plastic, so it's a fairly fragile system, sewer system, but it does have some cover on it. So, so after the site demolition and some of the temporary measures to reinforce the ground around it for the vehicles, they're going to install install various items, new services, new water and fire loops. They have a water tank that they're going to put on. If you look at your map that's after page 6-4, there's a water tank there in the corner. So they have a lot of water lines and electric lines that they have to put in around the foundation. And there's going to be some temporary excavation into the easement to allow construction of the foundation work. So other than that, they do have to cross the easement to tie in the new drain pipes from the DOT into the existing drainage pipe that exists on the VA hospital. So those are encroachments, and that's shown on your map. Other than that, it's all normal surface restoration, pavement, walkways and different things that they'll need around the new facility and access ways around it, but are fairly straightforward. Chris talked a little bit about those stipulations when it came to insurance and indemnification, but the rest of those stipulations are fairly normal for this circumstance. So we think, even though it is complex, that a lot of this stuff is fairly routine for this situation.
Thank you, Mike. Questions, commissioners? Hearing none, we do need a motion to move the item. And a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor of moving this approval of the encroachment agreement? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. Number 7. Number 7, we have a draft ordinance, which I understand, a draft ordinance revision that is going to be referred to the MDC Government Committee. I don't know that you want to add anything to that, Chris?
I just very quickly, Chris Stone, District Council. One of the last meetings we had on this particular item, it was suggested that we, staff, get together with representatives from the city of Hartford and have a thorough vetting of the proposed ordinance at the time. And since that time, we've modified that ordinance, and that's what you see in front of you. And I want to thank Commissioner Gale and Commissioner Wolf for attending a meeting and several meetings on behalf of the city of Hartford. We also had Hartford staff here, their corporation counsel, Jonathan Harding, and their director of Public Works, Chris Hayes. And I will tell you that what the product you have in front of you is the result of those informal meetings. They were very all parties had input and say, and hopefully all the issues that might have been of concern to this, that were of concern to the city, have been addressed. I've also heard from James Wolf in his other capacity as the Chief of Staff for the Mayor of Hartford, and he has indicated that certainly his office and the Mayor's office have no objection to this particular draft going forward to the Government Committee. So that's an important contribution to this discussion as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good, thank you.
If I may just add, yes,
by all
thank you. And I just want to clarify, so we started this conversation a number of years ago, and the conversation started out because our NEPDES permit that's issued by DEEP required us to have an ordinance for stormwater discharging to our sewer system. And this is the result of that. We had an ordinance that was very simple, said no new stormwater in existing CSO system, and it was very simplistic, but it was very confusing. So these documents address those issues to the satisfaction, as Chris Stone said, to the satisfaction of the city, Hartford commissioners and the city of Hartford. I just want to clarify, before this goes to the board for full approval, we need to bring this to DEEP to make sure that DEEP is okay with it, because it's part of our NEPDES permit, so we have to have them review this. The fact that the city of Hartford commissioners accept it, the fact that the mayor accepts it is a very positive, but I don't want to circumvent their authority under the NEPDES permit. So we would go to organization, and then once that's approved, then we would bring it to the DEEP.
Referring to government.
Yeah, government, sorry,
That's right.
apologize.
No problem.
And then in addition, there's been a lot of conversations, Commissioner Gale raised this issue, making sure that when we do these kinds of reimbursement type projects with developers, cost sharing agreements, we use that terminology a lot in the ordinance. We want to, one issue Commissioner Gale mentioned, and we support 100%, and that's how we do this anyways. We want to make sure that money that's put aside for a specific project, that's a cost-sharing project, Arrowhead, for example, working right now with the city of Hartford, the future Bushnell South projects and others like it. We want to revise the accessible sewer ordinance. So right now, the only monies that go into accessible sewer by ordinance is connection fees. So revenue associated with the connection fees, it goes into accessible sewer. We want to put the monies, so for example, Arrowhead gave us $200,000. We want to put it in an accessible sewer fund. If the board approves the agreement with the Bushnell South, we want to put that money into the accessible sewer fund. And then by ordinance, we need to make some changes here. By ordinance, only the board can authorize staff to remove it. Just like you'd approve any CIP project, any IP project. So the board, there'll be an assurance that the monies that is allocated towards a specific project, whether it's in Hartford or West Hartford or anywhere, it's going to stay with that project. The board is the only authority who can remove and authorize us to remove the money to do the project. So we need to make some changes. We will propose that at the next BPW meeting.
Is that the reason it's got to go to the other committee?
No,
it's an
no,
ordinance.
it's an ordinance.
It goes to government anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it just, but it will need some modifications to this.
So it's got to come back from DEEP first.
No, we just want to make sure, that DEEP is okay with it. And I would guarantee you they will be. The last ordinance we had was like a sentence, and this is very structured, and the good fact is that the City of Hartford Commissioners and the city support it. So we're not expecting any problems at all, but we, out of courtesy, because it's required in our permit to adopt in our ordinance, we need some feedback from DEEP before we finalize it.
So there is approvals that
Under our
but they're not as stringent as we.
Chris Stone, District Council, under our existing permit, this ordinance not only has to go to DEEP as a courtesy, it has to go to DEEP to get approved. We're not terribly concerned about their approval, but I don't want to tell you it's just a rubber stamp. They're going to look at it, and hopefully they'll approve it. And certainly with the City of Hartford's blessing,
And then we can take.
it's highly likely. Then we go to the full board.
Yep.
So please, with a proper motion to move this as a referral to government,
So move.
DC government. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, passes. Moving on, next item. A discussion and possible action on availability and capacity. And I'm going to guess that Scott wants to.
Yes, thank you.
address
So
first.
this is just a technical internal document that we utilize within engineering to actually develop the analysis. So it's really just, it's more of an engineering processes type document that we have for water and for sewer and for storm. And so we're just asking that it gets approved from BPW as well.
Okay. Questions? We don't, we do need a vote on this. Says potential action, yes. So we need a motion to move the item.
Motion to approve.
Vote
Second.
in a second, thank you. All in favor?
Question?
Questions? Yes, sir, of course.
I read through it, and I only have a concern that it's silent on a number of our member towns. And I can understand why. But should one of those member towns become eligible, if you will, for this, we would have to revise it. I mean, is there any way to mention all member towns, whether they're in need of it now or not, so that they're part of it?
If I may.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so the, this is specific, we talked about this like, for example, West Hartford still has a small component of the town that has a combined sewer system, which this would, did we say anything, John, to exclude or include CSO systems, right? That's how we framed it.
Well, you say Hartford and West Hartford only.
Right, but
there's two guidelines. There's a sanitary sewer guideline, which applies to all 8 towns. Then the stormwater guideline is only Hartford and the portion of West Hartford.
Right, which is the only CSO community that we have.
Right.
So if, currently, honestly, it's a lie, because all of our communities, Weathersfield, Newington, West Hartford, they're all CSO communities, but not by definition. And what I mean by that is, we got stormwater coming into our system through different ways.
Right.
It's groundwater, but it's like a CSO. It's the same. It's no different. You call it a CSO or call it infiltration. It's a CSO. It's interfering in our ability to treat our water. So, but yes, if we had a community that, if stormwater management, a stormwater authority of some sort, that we'd have to modify this if
My question was, is there any way that we could change it so that modification would not be required, but maybe not?
Yeah, I think it's,
No, Chris,
it's,
no, I'm okay with that.
yeah.
The problem is the one CSO is permitted. Technically, it's a permitted CSO that we're trying to get rid of, by the way, but it's permitted. The other CSO, as Scott points out, is by fact, is you're getting infiltration, and you get a de facto CSO that's not permitted, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We're good?
Oh, I think, Commissioner.
Sorry, Commissioner Gale.
Yeah, thank you. So we just talked about the ordinance that we're now going to send to the governing, and that ordinance talks about establishing availability and capacity guidelines. Are these the availability and capacity guidelines that are being suggested pursuant to this ordinance?
Yes.
And because I haven't had an opportunity to really review these in any kind of great detail, I don't know to what extent certainly the city of Hartford has, but this is going hand in hand then with this ordinance. So the representation, I take it, that's being made is that there's nothing in these guidelines, or rather, let me put it the other way, everything in these guidelines is completely consistent.
Correct.
With the ordinance we just passed forward.
Absolutely correct. It's processes and, it's engineers explaining how they do the process, but it doesn't conflict with anything that's in the ordinance.
Okay, so I'm not going to find on the basis of this guideline
Yeah.
that some development project is being told there's not enough capacity when the ordinance says you can go forward.
Well, no, the ordinance doesn't say you can go forward. The
I'm
ordinance
just saying
gives
if
a
the
bunch of-
ordinance, I'm
Yes.
relying on the ordinance.
Yes, the ordinance, correct.
Okay, all right.
Why don't we wait?
Yeah.
Isn't the way we're doing business?
You all set?
You would-
Commissioner Gale?
Well, I'm just,
With that? Maybe not.
Buyer's remorse.
I'm hearing from my Hartford
Buyer's
brethren
remorse.
that we maybe should take a pass on it for a month to review it.
Motion to adjourn.
I assure you, it doesn't conflict.
Where's this going to go from here?
We want, what's that?
To the district board.
Yeah, district board. But it's really an internal document that for engineers and the people that process these, it's their guidelines that's approved by the board. So we have this for water, sewer, and storm.
Scott?
Yeah.
But it's going nowhere until DEEP resolves it, and it's got to go to the district board for the final vote.
Yes, I don't believe DEEP is caring about this document. This is more of a internal process document of how you go through the process. But the most important thing DEEP wants to know is that we have an ability to be flexible. And you remember the conversations earlier on about existing versus new, and we had a very rigid, short ordinance which reflected the NEPDES permit. And so this ordinance is very robust and it gives lots of flexibility with lots of certain circumstances that may or may not occur. So I don't see DEEP reviewing the latter document.
Scott, is there any federal involvement here?
No.
Okay, because I remember EPA they objected to.
Delegated state.
Yeah.
You don't know what these guys got.
That's true.
but I wouldn't be signing.
Yeah, that was the MS4 permitting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Gale raises an interesting question, and maybe the motion to approve this should be contingent on item 7A being approved. I mean, we really can't approve this until 7A is approved by the district board, correct? We can't put it in place.
I think the resolution, the way it's read, John, could you read that again? It was to approve the ordinance so that the guidelines could be developed? How did that?
No, the draft ordinance was just referred to government, but the resolution for this item is to approve the guidelines.
Okay.
We had a similar guidelines on the drinking water side, and that was approved by Water Bureau at their prior meeting, and that was approved by the board at its last meeting.
I guess my question is, could the district board approve this prior to 7A being approved by the district board?
I think they can. Your point is well taken, is that they're intertwined. So BPW could approve these guidelines now. We can hold it at the board until the ordinance process plays out, or BPW can pause and not approve.
I would prefer, through you, Mr. Chair, to add to the motion that it be contingent on the approval of 7A.
If that's an amendment to the motion, I'll second that amendment.
If that's the case, we have an amendment on the table. And all in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition to the amendment? Thank you. And now back to the main motion, which is now amended. All in favor of the motion as amended? Vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm sorry.
Well, and it's up to you, Mr. Chair. If you called for a vote and you want that to stand, that's fine. I have one more comment, but I don't.
Yes.
It really doesn't matter either way, but by doing it this way, the staff direction and the method that staff's presently employing to determine capacity and analysis will now become an ordinance, as opposed to just a guideline for staff to follow when they do their analysis, which is fine if that's what you want it to be. On the water side, it's not. So we may end up, to be consistent on the water side, is also incorporate the capacity, availability and capacity analysis or guidelines on the water side into the water ordinances as well. But
Point of order.
Yes.
That's not my understanding of the amendment. I don't believe the amendment was making this part of the ordinance. It was just saying, we're not going to pass this until the ordinance, it's contingent upon the ordinance being passed.
if that's then that's.
That was the intent.
Okay, that's my misunderstanding, and then my comments don't.
Thank you,
Withdrawn.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, John.
And basically, if you would, Mr. Chair, Attorney Myrtle said, yeah, well, we can just hold it until then, which I absolutely think can happen, but I'm still uncomfortable with that. I would rather do a process to where we put the horse before the cart, that's all.
Yeah. If I may, what I would like to be able to do, and we're completely fine with that. You can review, and you won't, besides a mistake, you won't see any contradiction between the ordinance and the guidelines. But we would like to get this in front of DEEP as quickly as possible so that they can get a chance to look at it. Because what's going to happen is DEEP is going to call the city of Hartford, and they're going to say, are you okay with this? And that's really what they're going to do. They're going to reach out to the city of Hartford and say, are you okay with this new ordinance? Because this was a big issue a number of years ago. And so I just want, to be able to move forward with that once we go to government. When would that be, John?
We need to schedule.
Oh, schedule, okay. So as soon as that goes to government, then we could bring this to DEEP.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, I was going to mention along the same lines that I would ask Attorney Myrtle to send out notice or contact the appropriate chairs of these committees and maybe expedite and have special meetings back to back, and so we can move this along. But I don't know what the timelines are for these meetings to normally meet. Some only meet as needed.
Right,
So-
yeah, I've been waiting to schedule government for basically this ordinance. Again, we have the water side, and then there's another ordinance that is also pending for government, so we'll move ahead and get that scheduled quickly.
Are we all unscrambled on that one?
Yes.
Yes.
So we actually passed
We gotta act.
the amended motion.
Correct. Right.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for the comments. Moving on. Number 9,
He's taking the vote. That was close enough. He's taking the informal vote.
contract number 4, conveyance and storage tunnel. Again, just a discussion to
Yes,
get a few more facts and figures.
he was.
Sue?
Yeah. Scott, you want to say a few words? Usually he says everything before I start. So.
I'm sorry, Sue. No, I just want to say Commissioner Adel asked this to be on the agenda. I just want to clarify the title. We're not talking about the tunnel. We're talking about one of the contracts. We broke the tunnel project into 5 contracts. This is one of the 5 contracts. So I just wanted to clarify that issue, okay?
All right, and just to give you a little background, let's go to the next slide here. Again, as Scott said, the tunnel is the large brown line running horizontal across the screen. Contract 4 specifically is the circled area. It was specifically to get the wastewater, stormwater from the near surface, from the road surface down into the tunnel. It was to build the pipes and the and to get that near surface drain water down into the tunnel. So you had on the right there was about 2,300 feet of a 66-inch pipe that extended up. I don't know if I have a. Does this have a light on it? Oh, geez. No. I didn't know if it had a pointer.
Are you allowed to have one?
Like a, there you go. There you go. So was to build about 2,300 feet of 66-inch pipe here. I say near surface, but it was pretty deep. It was extended down to about 50 feet deep. Make all the connections to the drop shaft to get that water into the tunnel. And then over here in Preston, Maple area, there was a connection there of a 48-inch pipe, a little less than 1,000 feet in that area to make the connection. So that's, and then down here you have drop shafts 4, 5, and 6 at the connections at South Street, at Hanmer, and at Columbus Park to, again, bring the near surface wastewater, stormwater down into the tunnel. That was contract 4. And I'm just going to go back here, as Scott said, the whole concept of the South Hartford Tunnel was initiated before 2012, but it was put into our 2012 long-term control plan with DEEP, which wasn't approved until 2015, but by then the design was well started. Our basis of design report for the whole tunnel project was completed in February 2013. And again, the recommendation was to break the contract, the whole tunnel contract, into 5 different projects, so that you could get some. We broke it up basically on areas of expertise in the project. So contract 1 was a small project at the launch shaft site. It was to prepare the site, to bring the power to the site, get the site ready for the actual tunnel construction, and that was a $1.4 million contract, contract 1. Contract 2 was constructing the actual 4-mile tunnel that you've heard very much about. It drilled all the drop shafts for the tunnel, and it also constructed all the adits, 200 feet, 250 feet deep, that connected the tunnel to the drop shafts. So all that was constructed as part of contract 2. Contract 3 is the tunnel pump station, which we are in construction for now, 4-year contract. We've got about another year before that'll be finished and we start putting that facility online. I'm going to skip over contract 4. Contract 5 was basically the west end of the tunnel, bringing all the near surface wastewater, stormwater down into the tunnel on the west end of the tunnel. So that's out on New Britain Avenue in Hartford, getting the sanitary sewer overflows in West Hartford and Newington into the tunnel, okay? And then contract 4 was, as I showed you on the map, the east end of the tunnel, bringing in the Franklin Ave area, bringing the water into the tunnel there. And again, just some history of contract 4. Now, this is just specific to contract 4. You know, we were in design in 2000, early 2010 stages. By the time we got to contract 4, we bid it, got deep approval in late 2019, bid it in early 2020. And it was actually, I saw the date today, it was March 12th of 2020. I think that everything shut down the next day, right? March 13th, 2020. So I don't know if that was a sign or something, but we only received one bid on that project. It was $84 million. It was considerably over our engineer's estimate, which was about $50 million. So with only having one bid and it being significantly higher than our estimate, we kind of went back to the drawing board with that project, did a VE session, value engineering. How can we look at this project? Is there a way? The bidder we got was a Northeast Remsco out of New Jersey. It wasn't a local bidder. It's a large, that was a large trenchless project, so it didn't attract any local contractors. So was there a way for us to break this project up into pieces, look at different ways to build it, to see if we could attract local contractors? And what we looked at was breaking it up, contract 4, into sub packages, 4A, 4B, 4C, basically making it smaller so that maybe we got a Connecticut contract to do some of the work. And then, as you may remember, that was, as I said, we were working on that in 2020. But at the time, we were still, our integrated plan, our long-term control plan was sitting at DEEP, waiting for approval. So nothing really happened until, 2022 when that got approved. That meant we could put money in the budget for an IP request for funding for 2023 to move some of those projects, which we did, put some $525,000 in to finish off the designs of separate packages so that we could get that packaged up again and out to bid. But then, as you recall, in early 2023, that's when DEEP came to us about North Hartford and what are we going to do about North Hartford? And those projects never moved forward. We, as part of the basically redoing our IP on the back of a napkin, I say that because we had to get the shovel in the ground within a couple of months, if you recall. The contract 4 packages were basically deferred so that we could do some of the projects in North Hartford. So that's where they sit now. They've been deferred. We were required as part of our consent order to present something to DEEP in 2027 regarding what we're going to do about that area, the whole Franklin Ave area, how we're going to get it. Are we going to separate? Are we going to send it to the tunnel? What we're going to do in that area? So we will be doing that as part of our drainage study of the entire city, and it'll be going to DEEP in 2027.
Could I just add to what Susan said? So if we remember, when DEEP asked us, what can you do? How do you solve this problem in North Hartford? And we said, provide a community benefit. We always use that term, community benefit. Well, how do you do that? Well, you separate the storm where it's coming from, which is the homes. And so you're improving the plumbing systems within the homes, removing the stormwater. But that was very expensive, right? It doubled, tripled the price of the North Hartford work. And the only way we could actually achieve the goal of starting by July, of not raising the clean water surcharge on anyone, was to say to DEEP, you have to defer $300 million worth of work on the original consent order, which was pre-September of 2022. They agreed to that. And so this project is one of those projects that got deferred under the $300 million. Otherwise, we would have had to have raised the clean water surcharge rate on everyone to do this project. And the important part of this project, the political component to this project, is Contract 4 is what removes the overflows, eliminates the overflows to the Weathersfield Cove. So it was very difficult for DEEP to agree to that because of the political component of this project. Because, you know, it started the Clean Water Project. Weathersfield Cove is actually the project that initiated the consent orders. But they agreed that in order to do what we needed to do in North Hartford, we had to defer at least $300 million. And this was one of those projects that was deferred. And I'm sorry, thank you. And as part of that deferral, they did ask us, as Susan mentioned, but you must come to us by January of 27 to give us a plan of what you're going to do. So that's what we're working on now.
So there's, yes, Commissioner Gale, sorry.
Excuse my ignorance on this. How does this Contract 4 affect the usability of the tunnel itself?
It doesn't. What Contract 4 does, as Susan mentioned, all the drop shafts. So when we're collecting overflows that under a certain condition, and in this case, quote, 0, there can be no overflows under any condition to the Weathersfield Cove. So there are 5 or 6 overflow points on Weathersfield Cove on Franklin Avenue that actually are piped to the cove. And so all of those.
This doesn't affect using the tunnel.
Doesn't affect it.
These over here on the west end, this is all gonna work.
Yeah.
It's all hooked up, ready to go.
But it won't
When does
eliminate.
that
Hasn't
part-
been built yet.
When does that part go?
We can't go there, press go until we finish the pump station over here, which we have another year on.
And when you finish the pump station, it's irrelevant what's happened on Franklin Avenue. That can be done later.
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Let me,
Go ahead.
again,
Commissioner
getting
Pizzello.
back to Franklin Avenue. So you're saying at Columbus Park, at South Street and Franklin Avenue, don't we have another one down near Adelaide Street? That we
Overflow.
have shafts going down.
Yeah, the drop
Overflow,
shaft.
The shafts are down, have been completed, and they're capped. That's the metal thing that are in those
Yes.
on South Street. So when will we be building the outer side, the
That's what we're discussing, Contract 4.
core?
Yeah. Right now, those are deferred indefinitely. We really don't have a schedule right now.
So the shafts can't function without those.
There's nothing bringing the water to the drop shaft. That still has to be constructed.
And that's gonna be in what year?
We don't know. The requirement of our consent order, our new consent order, which is July of 2023, says that we have to do a study, which is a drainage study, which we actually brought to Board of Finance and to BPW, I think, and the full board. We added $1 million for the study to include this area. We're going to produce a study that says, here's what we think we need to do on Franklin Avenue to achieve Contract 4. But we're starting the study now, right? So we got to put in meter pits and do flow analysis and all those good things. We won't know anything until January of 27. And then there'll probably be at least a couple of years or more before we can initiate a project.
Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Susan, you were moving through the slides pretty quickly, and I was looking at numbers, but for the viewing audience, and I think we have a few commissioners that weren't around at the inception of this project from 1 through 5 excluding 4, but we're now up to $2.5 billion. I couldn't add the numbers up quick enough.
No, well, I mean, the tunnel is about 600. I mean, if you add all that up. But yeah, we've spent 200 plus billion. 2 plus billion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We have a question from Commissioner Stuber on the phone.
No, thank you. My question was answered by the ongoing dialogue.
It's all set.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Commissioner Drake.
Between now and 27, whenever this thing ends, if there's a major spill in the cove, sewer spill, and all the lawyers come out and say, we didn't do what we were supposed to do, we're last. You guys, have you have any concern you're gonna make it a major lawsuit? Because we haven't addressed.
No, because Deep changed the consent order. So Deep was being, as you know, during the North Hartford issue, Deep and the MDC was accused of ignoring North Hartford.
I understand, yeah.
And so there was a lot of political pressure on the state to change the consent order, and they did. And unfortunately, we had to push something, and the only thing we could
That was
push,
just last summer, though. That wasn't like pushing out 2 years.
no, July of '23.
It was 2 years.
2 years ago.
Seems like, was it 2
Yeah,
years ago?
yeah, 2 years ago. But just remember the, and a lot of people don't remember this unless you were around in the 90s, but there was a number of problems, and there's plenty of problems in the MDC sewer system, right? So there was a number of consent orders, small consent orders over the years, and Michael would know those well because he was here. And, but really what was the final straw with the Weathersfield Cove was not a CSO like we're referring to today. It was a dry weather flow day. A valve broke, open. And so raw sewage, which is illegal, right? But it wasn't the CSOs that we're referring to because of rain. But that is what initiated the lawsuits and all the fights over the Weathersfield Cove. And so in a rainstorm, as you know, our consent orders, except for Weathersfield Cove and North Branch Park River, those overflows are restricted to a one-year storm. So our consent orders, original consent order from Deep, did not even mention sewer backups and basements. And that was the biggest problem Deep and EPA had with North Hartford residents because the consent order that they mandated us to comply with didn't even mention sewer backups and basements. So that's why they were willing so eagerly to do something. But if you think about it, you're only regulating a one-year storm. So what happens on a 2-year storm? What happens on a 5-year storm? What happens in a 10-year storm? There's no regulation for it except Weathersfield Cove and North Branch of the Park River. You have to, quote, eliminate them. So if there's 84 regulators that overflow to a CSO. So there's some structure, 84 of them, that collect overflows in the city of Hartford, and they eventually get to 35 or so CSOs. 35 are going to the river, and Deep and EPA are okay with anything above a one-year storm.
They're permitted, basically.
They're permitted, right? So if Deep is willing to change the consent order and willing to accept and allow what's occurring in the Weathersfield Cove today, until we have some approval from them in 2027, we can't do everything, right? Our commitment as part of this agreement with the legislature and Deep was we're willing to do whatever it takes, and it was our recommendation for the community benefit. But what we said was we will not raise the rates on the same people you're trying to help in North Hartford. So that's why they had to give us relief, $300 million worth of relief. And this was the only way to do that.
Further questions? We don't need to take any action.
Oh, thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Sue.
Susan.
Next item,
Mr. Growling.
Number 10.
EPA didn't want to have a problem with it.
This was
This is,
this was an item that Attorney Stone wants to address. Number 10.
16 years.
Wow. We don't guess it at all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Stone, District Council. This is one item that I suggest you go into executive session. It discusses two claims the MDC has against others. So it's ripe for an executive session, obviously up to the board, but I would ask for a motion to go into executive session.
Okay, we need a motion to do that.
Move executive session.
Second.
Second?
Second.
Oh,
Yeah.
No. Who's gonna be seated here?
Just,
Is everybody
Yeah,
leaving?
Chris, you guys can head out. Yeah, you can head out.
it's just Scott and I.
Yeah.
John, you can stay if you want.
The three?
Yeah, we're all set.
I know exactly.
Yep.
Thank you.
The only people remaining besides commission members are myself, Chris Stone, Scott Jellison. Going out?
Yeah, I'll go.
That's it. You going home?
All right, I have
Where you guys going?
Commissioners Lester, Torini, Stuber, Gentile on the WebEx. So I'm gonna move you into a new room. Hopefully this
Okay.
works.
We just stay right here. You're gonna take care of everything?
Hope so.
Take care.
Move to the kitchen.
Can one of you leave?
Poor John.
Is it okay to pause the recording, John?
Yes, please.
We can both.
I know, huh?
Okay, thank you.
Curtains.
Curtains, kid.
Curtains.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometime, I don't know when we'll have a meeting, but within over the next couple of weeks or so.
Just got another client.
All right.
Too young.
Yes. Commissioners Lester that are on the WebEx, I see I'm starting a breakout session and it looks like there's a button
You said you weren't gonna.
for you to choose a session to join the breakout session.
Oh, I wanted to get, they were ready to vote it out.
You see a little piece of plastic about this big? Remember that big issue? Yep, by Trinity, by Trinity Street.
Sure it isn't in your I can move. Yeah, you were okay with that.
Like on the side. Sorry.
I don't care. Don't matter, man.
Thank God you're here. There's a reason for
Okay.
this.
All right, Commissioner Lester, I see you. Stuber.
I'm in.
Okay, great.
He's waiting.
Gotta be up at 4:30.
Okay, we need a motion to come out of executive session.
So move.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to item number 11, opportunity for general public comments.
In the suburbs.
Please no public.
Hearing none, seeing none in here. Any on the phone? Hearing none on the phone, move on to item number 12. Item number 12, request by commissioners for consideration of future agenda items. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll look for the magic motion.
So moved.
I'll move.
Adjourn.